the evidence with scales. For some of the cases, it's a scale. It's just a small kind of sticky thing we put on walls, and it's got measurements in inches and millimeters. And then we photograph that again, showing that this is essentially what I'm going to collect, and this is what it looks like. And we also have larger scale evidence markers, we call them, with numbers on them as well. So we lay those down so that when we take pictures, like overall pictures, you can see where all of the evidence is in these particular areas.
And when you're swabbing an item, can you explain to the jury how you swab an item and what is a swab?
A swab is basically a very large Q-tip. So we get them from the forensic companies that we order them from. It is a very large Q-tip in a paper kind of casing that it's sealed and sterile, so it's one individually in each one. So when you open up the casing, you take out the swab. When we also had vials of distilled water, it's just a small vial that you have to rip off the top. It's sterile as well, and we would put drops of the distilled water onto the Q-tip, and then we would swab the area that we were going to collect the item from, and then it would go back into its case that I opened, and then into an evidence envelope that we provided and sealed after that.
Okay. And in addition to collecting these swabs, do you also sometimes collect actual items from a scene that you then impound into evidence to Tallahassee Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when I say impounding into evidence, what does that mean?
We collect it, so it was things that we also collect on scene. They are sealed and evidence taped, and we have a property and evidence section at the police department where everything was sent to them after the scene was finished.
Okay. All right, so I want to go back to November 20th, 2010. You told us you were the primary forensic specialist there that day, but there were other folks from your team there with you as well, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What time did you arrive to 908 Saddle Creek Run that day?
It was approximately 11 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. And what was the first thing that you did when you arrived?
I met with the on-scene supervisors who had already staged a scene, which is why they called us out, and they informed us of what they located inside the house. At the time, they had found Brandy Peters in the foyer, and they located 2 children from what they believed to be in a bathtub.
Okay, so you arrived after the scene had been secured, after first responders arrived. And at that point, did you begin to collect, or I guess document evidence and document the scene?
No, not at that point. When I first arrived, they had notified me that there was a 3rd child that they believed was in the home, and so they asked me to go inside with an armed officer to see if we could locate the 3rd child. So we did go inside, and inside of the bathtub area, officers had originally seen only 2 children, and when I went in, I found the 3rd child, and so we immediately came out and were told that we needed to secure a search warrant for the scene. So at the time, until the search warrant was signed, we just had to stage outside of the scene.
Okay. After the search warrant was secured, at that point, did you begin processing the scene?
I did. We started with the documentation.
Okay. That was the videos and the photos that you told us about?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. What were you wearing when you actually processed and documented this crime scene?
Anytime we entered in the crime scene, I was wearing Tyvek boots. They're essentially large plastic covered boot coverings that go over your feet to avoid leaving any kind of impressions or dropping anything from our shoes into the crime scene, and latex gloves so that we didn't leave any of our fingerprints while we touch things or contaminate anything with our fingerprints.
Okay, and when you first went in, what did you notice about the condition of the home as far as the lights were concerned?
There were lights on in the hallway bathroom, and it was, I guess, the shared bathroom, the main bathroom in the home, and also in Javante, the small boy victim's bedroom. And that was all that was on in the home at the time.
What about TVs?
There was a television on in the master bedroom, Brandy Peters' room, and there was also a TV on in the twin girls' bedroom.
Was the back door locked or unlocked?
It was both. The back door had a bottom handle lock, the original where you turn the handle, so that lock was locked, but it also above it had a deadbolt that was unlocked.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, the deadbolt you would lock from the inside of the home.
Yeah.
The bottom lock was the kind that you could either push in or twist as you exit the home to lock the door?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, I want you to take us through the scene, and what I'm going to do is try to go room by room, the areas that you processed. Judge, does this microphone, will it pick up if I testify, or if I ask the questions from the projector?
That's not a courtroom microphone.
All right.
You just gotta keep your voice up.
Yes, sir. You started the courtroom when we have a microphone.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so, have you had an opportunity to view, all of, or a substantial amount of the photos that you took from the scene that day?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Okay. And I guess, did you try to take a photo of each room from each angle and then every item of evidence that you collected?
I did, yes, ma'am.
All right. All right, so when you viewed the photos from that first notebook I brought you, are those the photos from the back door, an exterior and hallway area of the home?
They are, yes, ma'am.
All right, and did you, are they true and accurate depictions of the photos that you took that day, or what you saw at the scene that day?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
All right, at this time by stipulation, Judge, I'd move into evidence 8A through NN.
It's my understanding we were gonna admit States Exhibit 1 through 146.
Yes, sir.
And that would include composite exhibits. Is that the stipulation?
Yes, sir.
So they'll all be admitted.
Yes, sir. So what I'll do is I'll go through each room, if I could just have permission to publish as we go throughout the house.
Certainly, certainly.
Thank you.
And let me just say to the jury, stipulation means that attorneys have agreed to something. We encourage stipulations when things are undisputed. There's no sense wasting your time and my time and their time over something that's undisputed. So the parties have agreed that these exhibits are authentic and admissible, and so you should consider them as such.
I want to turn your attention to the notebook that you have in front of you, not the photos, but the actual sleeves.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me if you recognize States Exhibit 9 through 25? And you had a chance to look at those?
I did.
Before today, okay.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
did you recognize those as the items that you collected from that back door hallway area of the home?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and are they in the same condition as when you impounded them into evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I could get those photos from you. Thank you. I want the laser pointer on the stand for you, so that you can let the jury know what you're seeing in each photo. All right, what do we see here in 8A?
This is a photograph of the back of the home. I'm just standing at the side of the house, taking a photo towards the back of the home. That's where we decided to enter and exit the home because Brandy was in the front foyer of the home, so we didn't want to disturb any evidence as we went through.
I'm seeing some sort of fence over here. Is the back of the home accessible from the front of the home without having to go through a gate or anything like that?
Yes, it is. There are only side fences on the home. I don't know if they were hers or if it was shared fences from the other property owners, but there was no fence in the front of the house blocking entry into the back.
All right, and what do we see in 8B?
That's a picture of the back door of the home where we made entry to go and document the scene.
8C?
It's just a close-up image of the back door of the home.
What do we see here at the bottom of 8C?
There's a curtain inside the home, and behind the curtain was kind of like a paper kind of blind that looked like it covered from the top to the bottom of it, and that just looked like it was torn when we ended up going inside to photograph it. So it's just a tear in the paper part of the blind area there.
Okay. Did you find any pieces of the torn paper shade or blind inside the home?
We didn't.
What conclusions did you make about that as far as when the blind may have been torn?
It didn't seem to have been torn recently, otherwise I would have expected it to have been in the outside of the home or the inside of the home, unless it was taken away.
Okay. What do you see in 8B?
This is a picture of the back door, but this was me now inside of the home. I'm standing in the hallway area taking a picture of the back door from the inside.
And then 8E?
That's a photograph I took of the locks of the back door. Like I'd mentioned before, there was I was noting that the deadbolt was in the open position, so it was unlocked, but the bottom door was locked in the locked position.
Okay, so that's twisted into a vertical position, the bottom one?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and did you collect any evidence from the doorknob?
I did. I collected swabs of the doorknob and the deadbolt area of the door as well.
Okay, I want to turn your attention in your binder there to States Exhibit 9 and 10. What are States Exhibit 9 and 10?
9 is a swab of the exterior rear doorknob that I took, and 10 is the interior rear doorknob that I took.
Okay, and when you say a swab, you're taking that long Q-tip that you talked to us about and taking it around, are you taking it around the entire doorknob?
The entirety of the doorknob, yes, ma'am.
Okay. What do we see in 8F?
8F was just documentation. There are obviously markings here on the door area, so I was just documenting that there were some scrapes and marks there, but there didn't appear to be any damage to the actual lock parts of the door.
So there didn't appear to be any forced entry to the back door.
There didn't appear to be any, no ma'am.
All right, and in 8G?
It's a photograph of there was a red curtain when I took the picture of the inside of the back door, and that's a suspected area of blood that I located on that curtain area. So I put, those are one of the scales that I had mentioned, so we put a scale on it, and it has a number of the item of evidence that I was using to collect it as, so I can take the picture showing what it was, and then I collected a swab of that area.
And 8H?
That's a close-up picture of that same area that was in the previous picture. It's showing the area of the swab, and then my item number of evidence and the scale showing the measurements of the stain.
Okay, and in your notebook there, do you have States Exhibit 11?
I do.
What is States Exhibit 11?
That is the swab of the suspected blood from the rear door curtain that I took.
Okay, so that's the swab of the suspected blood that we see in this photo?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and just so the jury knows what you're kind of looking at up there, can you hold up your notebook and the sleeves? Okay, so in each sleeve you have a
It's just
different
different.
packet.
Yeah, different envelopes of my evidence items.
I know earlier we talked about, if I could see the last exhibit you talked about, thank you. Earlier we talked about what impounding something into evidence means. I just wanted for us to all be on the same page here. So when you're looking at one of the items in your notebook that you impounded into evidence, how do you know that what the item is and that you were the person that impounded it?
Yes, ma'am. So on every item of evidence that we collected at the Tallahassee Police Department, it says we had our case number here, so this was a particular case number for the case. It had my item number, so that was the item that coincided with the scale picture that I took, a description of what I took, the type of the case, the number that we used for the case, my name, my badge number, and the date that I collected the item.
All right, thank you.
Notice Mr. Fuchs was trying to show off that he knows how to work the machine. Okay.
And what's all this tape that we see here?
So this is evidence tape. In particular, my evidence tape is here. These were the two, on each of these envelopes there are two openings. Well, there's one opening, but it's a sealed little fold here. But in the event that it comes undone for any reason, we evidence tape the top and the bottom of all of the seals to show that if it was opened, I would know about it. So we evidence tape it with our Tallahassee Police Department evidence tape. I put my initials, my badge number, and the date that I sealed it. Up here is actual evidence tape from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, so it appears it went to them for testing. And they generally break open the container outside of my seals so that I can still say that my seals were intact, and they have broken it somewhere else and they'll seal it on their own as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. What do we see in 8I?
This is a photograph of me at the end of the hallway taking a picture inside of the hallway area of the home.
And 8J? It's a little difficult to see. I'll just move the picture down.
Okay. Those are one of the other types of evidence markers that I was talking about where we have the item numbers. So I've laid out the items of evidence that I'd like to collect in that hallway and started marking them. So these are my pictures showing what the item numbers are in relation to where I've collected these items in the hallway.
Okay. Thank you. So all the different numbers that we see here are next to spots of what you think may be suspected blood, and you're marking them so that you'll swab them in and count them as evidence.
Yes, ma'am, for these items they are.
Okay, and these go all the way back to the end of the hallway here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And why do you say suspected blood?
Because we don't actually test for blood on scene. They have presumptive positive test for blood, but we didn't do that at the time. So the blood testing is done by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. So we call it suspected blood until it's actually confirmed by FDLE that it's blood.
Okay, and what do we see in 8K?
It's another picture. It's the same area where I'm taking a picture down the hallway showing my evidence markers and the items of evidence that I'm going to collect.
All right. If you look in your notebook, that states exhibits 12 through 17.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like for you to walk us through what 12 through 17 are as we go through the photos.
Okay.
Let me first go to State's Exhibit 8L.
So in State's Exhibit 8L, it is the evidence markers for my items of evidence 3 and 4, and State's Exhibits 12 and 13. Those are the swabs of suspected blood on the hallway that I collected.
And in State's 8M?
Is my evidence 5 and 6, which are State's Exhibits 14 and 15, and again, there are more swabs of suspected blood in the hallway.
And in State's Exhibit 8N?
So 8N is showing 7, 8, and 9 evidence markers. 7 is State's Exhibit 16, which is a swab of suspected blood, and State's 17 is my item number 8, again a swab of suspected blood.
Okay. And so that exhibit would be at number 8 here, which is closest, going to be closest to the bathroom at the end of the hall?
Yes, ma'am. That's the bathroom entrance over there.
Okay. And do you, on those swabs that you have in your notebook, do you label them approximately where they're found in the hallway, closest to the hallway bath, trying to differentiate them?
On these I didn't, only because the photographs document where they were located.
I gotcha. Did you do that in your report then?
I did, yes ma'am.
All right. Looking at State's 8O, what do we see here?
That is the hallway closet. That's directly across from the master bedroom in the hallway area.
What do we see in 8P?
That's another photo of the hallway closet door, and there's just areas where you can see that there's suspected blood on the door and the wall area, all along the closet door.
Can you show that to us?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. So here's areas of suspected blood. You can see down here as well, and here as well.
Okay, and did you also see some areas of suspected blood in 8O?
Yes, ma'am. There's suspected blood here, here, and there.
Okay, so what we have in these two pictures is kind of the middle of the closet door and the lower portion of the closet door?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, did you swab any of these areas of blood?
I did.
Okay, can you turn your attention to 18 and 19, States 18 and 19?
Yes, ma'am.
What are States 18 and 19?
These are my items 19 and 20 that are swabs of the suspected blood from the hallway door, the hallway closet door, I'm sorry.
When you say my items, you mean that was the TPD number that you gave it at the time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What do we see in 8Q?
These are my evidence scales. What I'm looking at here is a suspected bullet hole, entry wound in the door here, and suspected blood there, and that was one of the swabs of the blood that I just mentioned that I took as evidence.
And 8R?
This is a photograph of the inside of that closet door. When I opened the door, I noticed a bullet exit hole. And then there was also shavings from the closet door, from, I guess, the dry wood. I'm not sure whatever the door is made of, that wood particle. that was located on a towel area here and it also had a small hole in it. So in this item here, it was a blue towel. I located inside of it a projectile from a bullet, a spent bullet.
I think we'll get to those photos in just a second.
Okay.
State 8S.
That's a side angle of that. It's the same closet door. I'm just taking it from a different angle here, so you can see this suspected bullet entry hole, and there's the blood stain that I took as evidence.
And in T.
That's the bottom of the hall closet drawer, which was the other swab of evidence that I collected here of the suspected blood.
All right, I want to pay attention to state 20. What is state 20?
It is a swab of suspected blood from the south side wall of the hallway closet.
Okay. What do we see in 8U?
That is my item number 20. There we go. It's just a zoomed in photograph of the previous one where it was that suspected blood stain on the bottom corner of the hall closet.
And in 8B?
This is a photograph of a marker, and it's a swab of suspected blood that I was taking from that wall next to the hall closet, and then also you can see the suspected blood areas in there as well.
Okay, and I want to ask you about this swab of suspected blood. You have state 21 in front of you.
Yes, ma'am.
And what is state 21?
It's a swab of suspected blood from the wall south of Javante Segura's bedroom.
Okay. And what do we see in 8W?
This is just past Javante's room on the right, and this is the entrance to the hallway bathroom, and then you can see my evidence markers here for 8 and 9.
All right, and what do we see in 8X?
This is a scale. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get it. This is a scale. This is the swab of the suspected blood that I took on that south side wall of Javante's bedroom that I mentioned earlier in your State's Exhibit 21.
Okay, so this is the swab of that.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
suspected blood? Okay. All right, and what do we see in states 8AA?
This is just another angle of it, more front end of it, so you can see it better. The swab of the blood with my evidence scale in it.
This would be on the wall opposite the hallway bathroom.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, in states exhibit 8BB, this is in a close
It is.
view of that suspected blood.
It is. Yes, ma'am.
All right, and do you have states exhibit 22?
I do.
What is states exhibit 22?
It is that swab of suspected blood from the wall in the hallway across from the common bathroom.
What do you see in 8CC?
It's another angle of me standing from the back door looking down into the hallway, and you can see there's a scale where I swabbed suspected blood on that wall as well.
Okay, and in 8BB?
That would be a closer up image of the suspected blood that I saw that I was going to swab as evidence.
Okay, even closer view?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and do you see states 23?
I do.
What is states 23?
It is a swab of that suspected blood area on the wall.
What is states 8FF?
This is the lamp that was in the photos, my item number 9, in previous photos in the hallway. There is suspected blood drop on the bulb of that lamp. So the scale that I have in there is just showing that I'm going to collect a swab of that suspected area of blood as well.
Okay, and states 25? What is states 25?
Is a swab of that suspected area of blood.
All right, looking at 8GG, what do we see here?
So this is the hallway closet area, and these are the dowel rods that I was speaking about earlier. So we ended up trying to do trajectory because this particular closet door had an entry hole and an exit hole. So I was able to place a rod in to try to determine the angle at which the bullet entered that door. And so that's a photograph of the rod as I placed it through into the door.
And an HH, what do we see?
That is me opening the door so that you can get a better view of it coming in through the door of the inside, showing that it's slightly at a downward angle.
And an II?
Again, that's just other angles of me trying to take a picture of the trajectory rod. It was, as you can see, it was a very small hallway, not a very wide hallway, so it was hard for me to try to get like a perfect angle on it to get the entire picture in it. So I just kind of took a bunch of pictures from all different angles.
Okay, so if you're looking at the trajectory rod from the, it would appear to be going what direction?
It appeared to be going from the right to the left, and it was slightly downward.
Okay, and this is an 8JJ, another view of the trajectory rod?
It is, and that's just facing out towards the master bedroom area.
Okay, so this is showing if you're looking, if you're at the closet, looking out towards the direction the bullet would have came from, it would have been in the master bedroom?
It appeared so, yes, ma'am.
What do we see in 8KK?
So this is,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry. It's a little blurry, but this is, yeah, I'm not sure. It's still, I mean, I can explain it. So this is a photograph that I mentioned. You can see the debris on the towel. There's also a little hole in that towel, and right here is the projectile that was located inside of that hallway closet.
All right, and what do we see in 8LL?
It's another photograph of my evidence marker showing that the projectile that I located was item 17 for our evidence purposes.
And 8MM?
It's another close-up shot of the projectile area where it was located in the hallway closet.
And then 8NN?
Might be a little difficult to see, it's so clear to me, but there's where the hole in that towel was that I located, and you can see all the debris from the door, from the exit of the bullet.
Okay, and did you, what did you do with the projectile once you found it?
I took a swab of the projectile, the entire projectile.
Okay, and did you then impound both the projectile and the swab into evidence at TPD?
I did, yes ma'am.
All right, do you have figures 26 and 27?
I do.
What is 626?
26 is the projectile from the third shelf in the hallway closet that I collected, and 27 is a swab of that projectile that I collected. All right, thank you. Sure.
All right, so let's move on to the, once you get situated, let's move to the master bedroom.
Okay.
All right, so inside your master bedroom notebook, you see some pictures.
I did, yes.
All right, and those should be marked in their date A through HH. You've had an opportunity to look through those photos before court today, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and are those true and accurate depictions of how the master bedroom appeared?
They are.
All right, I want to go through those pictures with you and then go through the items that you collected just as we just did.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see, 28A.
This is a photograph that I was taking again at the back of the hall, towards the back of the hallway. There's the twin girls' room, and the master bedroom is here. It's a photograph of me essentially standing inside of the doorway of the twins' bedroom and looking into the master bedroom.
28 feet.
This is a closer up, or what we call a mid-range picture, of the door frame in the master bedroom, and I was photographing the suspected blood swipes here.
And then 28 feet.
That's a closer image with my evidence scale on it showing the suspected blood on the door frame of the master bedroom door.
And did you swab the suspected blood on the door frame?
I did, yes ma'am.
And when State's Exhibit 29 should be the first sleeve in your notebook there.
It is.
Have you had an opportunity to look through all of the items in the notebook, all of the different swabs and items that you collected from the master bedroom?
Yes ma'am.
And are they all in the same condition as when you encountered them?
Yes ma'am.
All right. What is State's 29?
It is a swab of suspected blood that I took from that exterior master door.
And 28 E. What do we see here?
It's another photo of me heading into the master bedroom. So that's the door there and just looking straight inside of the door.
So the door frame that we just saw would be on your right.
Yes ma'am, it's right there.
28F.
Is now I've come all the way in through the master bedroom and I'm taking a picture from the other side of the wall outside of the bedroom.
And you told us that the TV was on in the master bedroom.
It was.
The TV you're talking about.
Yes ma'am.
What do we see in 28G?
There was a silver color bracelet on the floor, and this is right at the entry, right inside of the master bedroom door, and it appeared to have suspected blood on it at the time, so I collected that bracelet as evidence.
And do you see State's Exhibit 30 in your notebook?
I do, yes ma'am.
What is 30?
That's the bracelet that I collected, item number 10.
All right, 28H.
Is another photograph looking into the master bedroom, and you can see the evidence markers for items of evidence that I was planning on collecting from the room after I documented all of it.
We see some different spots on the carpet. I mean, what did you, is all of that suspected blood? What was that?
No, it didn't appear to be, and that I kind of went through the carpet all throughout the house. I kind of just assumed because there were 3 small children in the house, a lot of it looked like dirt. So, I mean, obviously suspected blood, the color of our blood is generally red. So a lot of those stains appear to be like gray or black. So none of them appear to be suspected blood to me. It just kind of looked like dirt and years of use with like kids and stains running through carpets in the home. So it was all throughout the home.
Okay, so just typical stains on the carpet from having kids, but all the items that you suspected may be blood you swabbed.
I did, yes ma'am.
Okay. And 28I, what do we see?
This is a photo of the bed in the master bedroom, and it's my evidence marker 11. You can just see that there's a wallet on the right side of there, and it looked like a lot of the wallet was empty, and it looked like the stuff had been taken out of the wallet and just laid on the bed. So I documented that just to show where I found it.
And 28J?
Is a closer up picture of some of the items that were located on the bed.
Okay, so you tried to take pictures of all of the items throughout the shown contents on the bed?
I did, yes, just to show what they were closer up.
Okay. And 28K?
Is the right side of that where you can see the other items on the other side.
And 28L?
Is another angle. I took a lot of pictures just showing what was on the bed.
And there were a number of cards?
There
in the
were.
bed?
And paperwork, yes ma'am.
And then what's this?
This is I called it a multicolored wallet.
In State's Exhibit 28M?
Is a purse that was on the floor just below the master bed.
Right, looking at the packages you have in front of you, States 31 and 32. What are 31 and 32?
States 31 is the contents of the purse that was on the master bed.
Okay, and what about 32?
And states 32 is the actual purse on the floor that was next to the master bed.
And I appreciate, I've left some gloves up there for you, just showing us the purse and the wallet, and the jury will have that package in evidence room if they need it.
Okay. I collected.
That's just standard procedure. You use gloves and handling something like that. Blood on it. It's not something special for this case. I think there was something special going on here.
And did you want this open as well?
I'm sorry?
Did you ask me to open this as well? I'm sorry.
Oh,
Just the purse?
sorry. I believe there's a wallet.
Oh,
located in there
okay,
as
I'm
well.
sorry.
Thank you.
And this was the wallet.
What do we see in 28 and
This is a photo on the side of Brandy Peters of the master bedroom. It's the northwest corner. On the wall, what I was showing is there's a corded phone that's here on the floor that appeared to have damage to it.
okay, and 28O?
Is another image of that phone area. I located, the piece that the wall jack goes to, and here was broken off, and that plastic piece was still inside of the wall. So I was just documenting the damage to the phone.
Okay, and did you collect that phone?
I did, yes ma'am.
Turning your attention to should be the last package you have there in front of you, State Exhibit 33. What
Yes.
is 33?
It is a corded phone on the floor that I located.
Okay. What do we see in 28P?
That's a closer up image of me taking a photo just to show the damage, that there was actually no plastic end of that jack on that cord there that was supposed to go into the wall.
And did you end up, did you swab the phone?
I did.
Okay. What areas of the phone did you swab?
I swabbed the handle of the phone where they would have held it, and I swabbed what I called the cradle area of the phone, is where you would have put it down, the bottom piece of it, and I also swabbed the broken end of the cord that was supposed to go into the wall.
Okay, and looking in your binder at State Exhibit 34 through 36, can you tell us what those items are?
Yes, ma'am. 34 is a swab of the end area of the phone cord. 35 is a swab of the sides of the phone cradle area of the phone. And 36 was a swab of the handset of the phone.
Okay. And then looking at 28R, what do we see in 28R?
28R is the same area where I picked up the phone. The item number, my marker, item number 13 was where the phone was. And there's another item of evidence, 41 over there.
Okay, and in 28S?
Excuse me, it's another image of that same area on the side with evidence markers in it.
What do we see in 28T?
This is the bed sheet on the master bed. If you're looking at the bed, it's the top right side of the bed. There is an area here that I located that had suspected blood right there. So I was documenting that area on the bed.
Okay, and did you swab the suspected blood?
I did, yes ma'am.
I'm looking at item 37 in your notebook. What is item 37?
It is a swab of that suspected blood area on the sheet.
What do we see in 28U?
This is the entertainment center in the master bedroom. This would essentially be the door over here. And so I was just documenting there were items of evidence collected from on top of the entertainment center that I located there as well.
Okay, and I believe Officer Wilder impounded those items. We'll hear from her and I'll move on to the next item that you impounded. What do we see in 28B?
So this is a bedroom, or I'm sorry, this is a window in the master bedroom. And the bed would be, oh, I'm so sorry, down here. And there's a suspected bullet hole in the curtains, or the blinds there, that actually went through the window and outside of the exterior window of the house.
What do we see in 28W?
So that's my documentation and my scales of the suspected bullet hole. So you can see the blind is where it was in the picture before with the hole, but it also shows behind the blinds there's a hole in the window, and it also goes onto the outside of the window as well.
And 28X?
And that's the exterior window where the bullet hole exited.
And 28Y?
It's a closer up image of that exit with my scale marker in it.
And in 28Z?
An even closer up image of that same exit hole in the window.
Okay. What do you see in 28AA?
Again, these were the dowel rods that I was speaking of, so when we came back to do the trajectory into where the bullet holes were, because this had at least 2 holes in it, I was able to stick the rod through to determine the trajectory of the bullet.
And then 28BB?
It's more side angles of it showing that it was slightly upward at an angle. It did appear just to be straight on. It didn't appear to be going left to right or right to left at all. It just appeared straight on and slightly upward. So I was taking pictures at different angles just to show from different views the angle of that trajectory rod.
Slightly closer view in 28BC?
Yes, ma'am. And there you go, as you can see it as it's kind of going upward.
All right, and then 28BB?
Is outside of the window, where you can clearly see that it's going at an upward angle.
And 28EE?
Is another side view. I tried to get it from all angles just to show how the bullet path seemed to go.
And 28FF, this is from the other side of the rod on the outside of the house?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What do we see in 28GG?
This,
I'll give you the closer up here. 28HH?
okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I got turned around for a second. This is still in the bedroom. This is going into the master bathroom area right here, and there's an area of suspected blood, and that's my item number for the collection of the suspected swab, or the swab of that suspected blood.
Okay, so in GG, we're in the bedroom looking into the master bathroom, and this is your evidence marker with the suspected blood. This would be the closer up view there in the doorway of the master bathroom.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you look in your notebook to State's Exhibit 42?
Yes, ma'am.
What is State's Exhibit 42?
It is a swab of that suspected blood area.
Okay. I want to go back to this picture that we saw, where you showed us where the phone was, and what was your 41 marker there? I think I was just telling you that.
I'm sorry. Yes, there was a gold toned. It was a bubble type earring that I located on the floor in there, and it just seemed to be out of place. So we documented it and I collected it as evidence.
Okay. And in your notebook, you see State's Exhibit 38.
I do.
And what is 38?
It is that gold toned bubble earring.
Okay. And we saw a picture from the top of the entertainment center. I know Investigator Wilder collected a few items, but did you collect State's Exhibit 40 and 41 in your notebook?
I did, yes, ma'am.
And what are 40 and 41?
40 is a cigar that I located in the ashtray up there. I'm sorry, there's the ashtray. So I located a cigar in there, and 41 was a suspected marijuana cigarette that we located in there as well.
Okay. All right, so the last couple of pictures we saw were leading into the master bathroom. Was the master bathroom the next room that you processed?
Yes, ma'am.
For court today, did you have an opportunity to look at State's Exhibit 43A through W, the photos of the master bathroom?
I did, yes, ma'am.
And were those accurate depictions of how the master bathroom looked that day?
Yes, they were.
Right. states 43A. What do we see here?
It's a picture that I took inside of, this is the master bathroom door. There just appeared to be some kind of scuff mark, in my opinion, scuff mark on the door, so there was just some kind of discoloration on the door. I was just documenting that it was there.
Okay. And 43B.
Is another view inside of the master bathroom.
Okay, so this picture would be taken from the doorway from the master bedroom going into the master bath.
Yes.
All right, and what do we see in 43C? Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to ask you about in 43B, did you collect some evidence from the door handle?
Yes, I did. I collected a swab of the exterior door handle of that bathroom door.
Okay. What's states 44?
Is a swab of that exterior door handle.
Okay. And did you also swab, I guess, the other door handle we see in this photo? That would be the door to the leading into the toilet room.
That's what I called it. Yes, ma'am. I took a swab of the exterior of that door handle as well.
Okay. And that's states exhibit 45?
It is. Yes, ma'am.
Looking at 43C, what do we see here?
So when you walk into the master bathroom, directly to your right is the vanity there. So it had a double sink vanity and then just a mirror. So I'm documenting what I saw inside of the bathroom at the time.
And did you collect any evidence from the counter?
I did. I collected swabs of both of the faucet handles in the master bathroom, and I also collected, there was a red and black piece of hair on the countertop there, so I collected that as well because it appeared to match the type of hair that was on Brandy's head at the time.
Okay, in your notebook, can you tell us what states 46 through 48 are?
46 is a swab of the west side of the bathroom faucet handle, of this bathroom faucet handle. 47 is a swab of the other bathroom faucet handle. And 48 is the piece of hair on the counter that I collected.
Right. And when you say the other one, this one on the other side, not the other bathroom, just the same.
That, yes ma'am,
Gotcha.
the other faucet.
And 43D, what do we see here?
So in this picture, it's still looking into the bathroom. You can see I just called this a toilet room. I wasn't sure what else to call it. So that's where the toilet room is, and there's shattered glass here. And there's some missing glass there as well. I located an indentation in the frame, and it appeared that it had been hit with a bullet. So I was documenting the damage to the door.
And 43E?
So on the floor here, where I located a lot of broken glass, there's also a bullet, a projectile that was located on that towel.
43F?
Is a closer-up image of that projectile that you can see right here. That's right below where all the damage was in the glass in the shower.
What do we see in 43G?
So this is after I've laid down my evidence markers for what I'm going to collect. You can see that I've laid it down where that projectile was, and I also put a scale on here because there's an indentation where it looked like the bullet actually hit that, and that's where it fell down to the ground and damaged the glass as well. So I'm documenting all the damage I see in there.
Did you collect the projectile that hit the shower door there and landed on the towel below?
I did.
Okay, looking at states 49. What states 49?
That's the projectile that was on the towel.
And you told us that you put a scale next to the indentation on the shower door. Is that what we see in 43H?
Yes, ma'am. So that's my
Can you show
evidence
us the
marker.
indentation?
I'm sorry, yes, ma'am. There's my evidence marker there, and right below it here, you can see the damage to the door frame where I believe the bullet hit and then fell to the ground.
Okay, and the glass that's kind of shattered here, some of it's still in place. That was like that all the way up, as we could kind of see in the first photo you showed us?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And 43I is just a close-up of the projectile that was on the towel that you told us was states exhibit 49?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. And so after a bullet's fired from a gun, this is kind of the finished product there?
Well, it hit a hard, flat surface, so I mean, generally the bullet is kind of round and curved, so
Right.
it doesn't surprise me at all that because it hit that hard, flat surface, it was stopped immediately and kind of mushroomed out into that position.
Okay, thanks. 43G, we see another evidence marker over here.
Yes, ma'am.
What's over there?
There's another projectile that I located on the floor right here in the toilet room.
All right, looking at 43J, what is this?
That is a projectile that's on the floor in the toilet area in that room.
Slightly different shape than the last one we saw?
It is.
Did you collect this projectile?
I did.
And is that State's Exhibit 50 in your binder?
It is, yes, ma'am.
And I guess, was this kind of right below the toilet paper rack there in the bathroom?
It was.
Okay.
You kind of see it.
The toilet paper rack?
Yes, it is.
And 43K?
This is that toilet room door. It was initially open at the time, so when we closed it, you can see that there is the suspected bullet hole entry into that door. And then when we opened the door, there was the exit.
And 43L?
And that's the inside of the door. So I've just opened it and come on inside the bathroom area. So that's where the bullet exited through into the toilet room area.
And 43M?
Those are closer up pictures of my actual scales showing the bullet hole in the door, the toilet room door.
And we see that one is labeled as G.
Yes, ma'am.
What do we see in 43N, the one labeled as F?
That's the entry. That's the outside of the door where it entered through. And then G was where it exited.
And in 43O, what do we see here?
This is the dowel rods again that I used to try to determine the trajectory of the bullet in this door in the closet room, or the toilet room. I'm sorry.
And 43P?
Is another angle of it. So I just went to the side of the bathroom now to show you the angle. So it appeared to go from the left to the right, and it was at a downward angle from the door.
And 43Q?
Is another picture further out because again it was another tight area in that initial door space. So I came further out to show the dowel rod.
So we're back in the bedroom, looking past the suspected blood spatter that you saw and looking towards the toilet room.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that bullet, you said the trajectory is at a downward angle?
Yes, so you can see with the rod how it's going upwards.
In 43R, do we see the trajectory with the door open?
Yes.
In 43S?
This was me standing on top of the toilet, trying to get the picture. I noticed that there was an indent in the very bottom section of that porcelain part of the toilet. So when I was taking a picture inside on the toilet, looking at the trajectory rod, it would have appeared that the bullet would have gone straight into the toilet, and that's where I located that indentation.
Okay, 43T?
Is another closer up image of the inside. I'm inside of the toilet area right here, so that's the angle of the bullet coming through the door.
All right, and in 43N, can you show us where you see the projectile in this photo?
Yes, ma'am. It's right there.
All right, and in 43V, here what were you trying to show when you put the scale there?
So this is that indentation I had mentioned. After I'd done the trajectory rod and seen where the bullet should have hit, there's a mark, there's a scuff right here on the toilet where it appeared that the bullet had actually hit that area there and then kind of ricocheted off to the side.
Okay, so there was 2 projectiles total in the bathroom, one that hit the shower and fell down onto the towel below, and the other one that went at a downward angle through the toilet room door, hit the toilet, and landed below the toilet paper rack.
Yes, ma'am.
You get a good stopping point, Miss Dugan. We're probably ready for a little break.
Probably in 2 minutes I'll be done with this
Good,
round.
good.
Thank you. What do we see in 43W?
This is a photograph of the master bathroom window. It's actually, it was hidden behind both of those doors. So if you have the bathroom door open and the toilet door open, when we close them, there's a master bathroom window there, and it had a red curtain covering it as well that was similar to the one in that hallway.
Okay. What can you tell us about the screen to this window?
The exterior screen to the window had damage to it, and the window here, I was photographing because it's in the unlocked position.
Were there any other unlocked windows in the house?
No, ma'am.
This damage to the screen, I guess because of the damage to the screen, did you end up processing this window for latent fingerprints?
I did, and because it was the only unlocked window in the house, I processed the exterior and the interior of the window and that windowsill area for latent fingerprints.
And what are latent fingerprints?
Latent fingerprints are essentially fingerprints that are invisible to the naked eye. They require some kind of processing in order for you to see them. So essentially, it's the ridges on our hands, our palms, and our feet. We use them for gripping items. So when you touch an item or a type of surface, you have pores and oils in your skin that essentially leave some kind of marking there. So the latent, when you process it using different kinds of chemical or powder processes, you can sometimes get latency of value or just kind of spots that show that something had touched there.
Okay. You mentioned to us that you had 1,500 hours in forensics. Have some of those hours been in latent fingerprints analysis?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about your training and qualifications for latent fingerprint analysis.
I have been doing latent fingerprint analysis since 2006. That is my primary and only job at the Broward County Sheriff's Office. I am certified through the International Association of Identification, which is the only international certifying body for latent fingerprints. My primary job is to do latent fingerprints now, and I've gone to well over 40 classes and training and conferences regarding latent fingerprints and comparisons.
Have you ever testified in court where you've given an expert opinion in the field of latent fingerprint
Yes, ma'am.
examination? About how many times?
Approximately 60 times.
Do you leave a latent fingerprint every time you touch a surface?
No, ma'am.
All right. Is it unusual not to find latent fingerprints?
It's not.
And why not?
There's several circumstances. The most obvious one is if you're wearing gloves, you're not going to be leaving any kind of fingerprints anywhere other than inside of your gloves. There's different types of fabric surfaces. Essentially, like I said, it's oils and the sweat glands that you leave, so it's essentially wet. So anything that's porous, fabric or kind of carpeted areas, it's not going to stick to those areas to a point that we can see your fingerprints. So generally, the best types are solid, smooth surfaces, which is why I process the windows as well. But if they're not clean, if they have, tints of dirt on them, then you're not going to leave that. Essentially, when you touch something, you'll kind of just take away the dirt instead of leaving your impression.
And you said you processed this window for latent fingerprints?
I did, yes ma'am.
Did you find any latent of value?
I did not.
If a latent fingerprint isn't of value, does that mean that it's suitable to be compared to anyone's fingerprint?
It is not suitable if it's not of value.
Okay, that's all. Thank you. It's a good talking point, Judge.
All right, let the jury step out. Deputy. Stay in session for just a moment. Go ahead. I had Ms. Cunningham do a transcript of my ruling about Mr. Santos. It appears to be current, so maybe of help. Anything else from either side?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Joe, real quick, we marked one thing, state court exhibit number 1, that is my opening statement, recorded onto a disc, so that way it's in the record, but it's not an actual piece of evidence.
So the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just for record purposes. Yes, Ms. Dugan?
I just wanted to note, the stipulation that I provided to the court said that the defense is stipulating to all of the state's evidence 1 through 46, including composites, that the state is seeking to admit. We're not seeking to admit all of the evidence from last time, but we thought it would be just too convoluted to try to renumber everything again. So I just wanted to point that out from the stipulation.
Well, you need to let the clerk know then what you're not admitting,
Yes, sir.
because they're going to be working off your list. And of course, Mr. Brent, let him know what you're not admitting to. But anyway,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. 10 minutes.
I'm sorry.
Give me a butter.
We can start without him.
All right, come to order, court is back in session.
David, jury, please. Remain standing for the jury.
All right, everybody be seated, please. May I proceed, Ms. Dugan?
Did you take some photos of the twins' bedroom?
I did.
Okay, so the two girls, they shared a bedroom in the house, one room?
It appeared to be so, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and 51A through B, the photos of these twins' bedrooms, did you have an opportunity to look at these before court?
I did.
And are they accurate depictions of how the girls' room looked that day?
It was.
You're looking at 51A, a little bright. 51A, what do we see here?
That's a photograph I took standing in the hallway facing into the twins' room.
When you look at it on the monitor, do you get the same glare?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Wasn't sure what you were seeing. Do you see the pointer from the, no, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's no problem. That's not her. I just
didn't
was
realize
curious how that worked. So.
And 51B?
That's again, it's a different angle, but it's showing the inside of the girls' room there, just kind of showing more inside of the bedroom.
I looked it up on that, so I'll just start doing that. All right, and then 51Z?
Again, that's me inside of the bedroom now. I'm just trying to get all the different angles inside of the room to show how the house looked when I arrived.
Okay, so the beds are pushed together in this room?
They are.
51D?
Is the opposite side, so now I'm standing against the window, and that's the closet in the twins' room.
And this looked to be just the same type of staining on the carpet you told us about earlier, just from wear and tear?
Yes, it was just kind of black and grayish colored. It just looked like dirt.
And 51E?
That's I guess the dresser and the TV that was in the girls' room. That was one of the other TVs that were on in the room, in the home. I'm sorry.
Did you collect any evidence from the girls' room?
I did not. We didn't locate any evidence of value from the twins' room.
Did you find any suspected blood in the twins' room?
No, ma'am.
So no swabs were taken?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I want to move on to Javante's bedroom. Did you have an opportunity to look at the photos 52A through G of Javante's bedroom?
I did.
And are they accurate depictions of how his room looked on November, on the day that you processed it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Looking at 52A, what do we see here?
This is, again, I'm standing in the hallway looking into Javante's bedroom.
And in 52B?
I just took a picture. It has his name on a sign outside of his bedroom door, so I just documented that.
And 52C?
There were several areas of suspected blood that I located on the outside of Javante's bedroom door. So you can see in here, these were the areas that I was photographing to show that there was suspected blood all along the door.
52D?
Is a closer up picture of that same door. I've put evidence scales in there to show the items of evidence that I'm going to collect the suspected areas of the blood, the swabs that I took.
I want to turn your attention to, let me show you this other one as well. In 52E?
That's the side of Javante's door. It's the door frame. So essentially here, this is where the door would close into. So you can see that there is suspected blood spatter along the door frame, but not at all where the inside of the door frame was.
Okay, and did you swab all of the suspected blood that you saw on his door and door frame?
Those areas that I marked, I did collect swabs of those suspected blood areas.
All right, I want I'm sorry, 56?
Yes, ma'am.
What are 53 through 56? Can you read out each one of those for me?
Yes, ma'am. States 53 is a swab of the suspected blood from the exterior of Javante's bedroom door. States 54 is another swab of suspected blood from the exterior of Javante's bedroom door. 55 is another swab from the same area, and so is 56 is from the south door frame. I apologize.
What do we see in 52F?
This is just me documenting the inside of Javante's bedroom, so if you can see, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you can't see the pointers there, but there's a, down here is the actual door frame area, so this is just directly inside of the door of Javante's room. And it's just documenting the items I noticed on the floor.
And in 52G?
Is another angle going out onto looking through the door into his bedroom as well.
Okay, so there's one bed located in the bedroom, the one with the bedroom cheeks here?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you collect any items of evidence from the bedroom besides the swabs from the door and the door frame?
No, ma'am, there's nothing inside of Javante's bedroom that I collected.
All right, were you able to look at 57A through H, the photos from the hallway bathroom or the common bathroom?
Yes, ma'am.
And were those accurate depictions of how the bathroom appeared on the day that you processed it?
Yes, ma'am.
What do we see in 57A?
This is a look inside of the hallway bathroom. There's an area of suspected blood that I located on this carpet right here that I'm documenting, just looking into the bathroom area.
What do we see in 57B?
This is the outside of the door frame of that hallway bathroom, and there's suspected blood areas here that I noticed, that I was documenting.
Did you swab that suspected blood?
I did, yes, ma'am.
Looking at your common bath notebook, going to be the first sleeve. What is State's Exhibit 55?
It is that swab of the suspected blood from the exterior door
Okay.
frame.
And looking in that same notebook, what is State's Exhibit 59?
59 is a swab of the suspected blood area from that rug.
And can you point out to us what the laser where that would be?
Yes, ma'am. It's right here.
Thank you. What do we see in State's 57?
This is a photograph that I was taking inside of that hallway bathroom, so you can see the sink and the toilet seat and the bathtub area.
Okay. Did you take any swabs of the bathroom sink faucet?
I did, yes, ma'am. I actually took a swab of the faucet handle of that sink.
Okay. And what is State's 61 in your notebook?
Is a swab of the sink faucet handle.
Okay. And so that would be, how did you swab the sink faucet?
It would have, I'm sorry, you can kind of see it better in the mirror, so it was just one of those single handle ones, so I would have gone on the top and underneath it as well to cover the entire handle with a swab.
So you're trying to cover all the areas that a person would touch if they touch that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, looking at 57D, this is a photo of the bathtub. What do we see here?
This is just showing the scene as I saw it when I entered the bathroom of the home. And it shows the children, I'm sorry, in the bathtub.
Okay. And 57E?
Is a closer up picture of the children. As we saw it, you had Tamaya, you can see her on top. Javante is towards the end, and then Tanaya was underneath the other two.
What do we see in 57F?
This is a picture of Tamaya's left hand. There's kind of a, I don't know if it's like a soap rack, but her hand was the only part of their body that was resting outside of the water at the time that I arrived. So I was documenting that section of her hand because I collected a swab of it.
And I want to turn your attention to State's Exhibit 60. What is State 60?
It is a swab of the left hand of the child with white sandals.
Okay? And so that's the left hand that you swabbed?
Yes, ma'am.
And how did you swab her hand?
It's with the same way that we do the swabs for the suspected blood. I just took the entire upper portion of her hand because it wasn't in the water, so it could have retained, we'd hoped it would have retained some kind of evidence.
When you labeled her swab, you said the child with the white sandals. Were you able to, I guess you weren't able to swab any body parts of any of the other children in the bathtub?
No, they were all wet at the time.
And because they were wet, did you, they're very unlikely to get any DNA from their hands?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to go back to Sheet 57D. Did you swab any areas from the faucet or handle portion of the bathtub?
Yes, I did, the actual faucet and the handle portion.
Okay, can I turn your attention to State 62? What is State 62?
62 is a swab of the bathtub faucet handle.
Okay, so that would be this upper portion right here?
Yes, ma'am.
And you swabbed it in the same manner that you did the sink handle?
I did.
Sink faucet handle? Okay, what about State 63? What is 63?
63 is a swab of the grab bar in the tub.
Can you show us what a grab bar is?
I'm not sure if that's what it called, but that's what I called it in reference to my evidence collection. So that's what I believed it. You'd grab onto it.
Okay. What do we see in 57D?
57D is there was suspected blood that I located on that bathtub wall area, so I have my evidence scale in there showing the area that I was going to collect a swab of.
Okay, and do we see kind of an up-close photo of the grab bar here?
You do, yes, ma'am.
And where did you swab on the grab bar?
The entire area of the grab bar.
Okay, looking at your notebook, what is State 63?
63 is a swab of that grab bar.
What do we see in 57H?
It's a mid-range picture of me getting closer into that swab of, or that area of suspected blood I had located in the bathtub.
Okay, and what is State 66 in your notebook?
66 is the swab of that suspected blood.
Did you take any swabs from the toilet in the bathroom?
I did, yes, ma'am.
Okay, looking at State 57C, is this the toilet you swabbed?
It is, yes, ma'am.
What areas of the toilet did you swab?
I swabbed the area right here because as a girl, the seat is generally down, so I assumed to lift it up, that's generally the area you would use to lift that bottom seat up, so I just swabbed this section. I'm sorry, I just called it a lift area, the section that you would lift up that part of the toilet, and I also swabbed the flush area, the handle to flush the toilet.
Okay, and looking at your notebook, is State 64 the swab of the bottom lift area of the toilet seat?
Yes, ma'am.
And 65 is the swab of the toilet flush handle?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you swab the bathroom, looking at 57D, the knob to the bathroom door?
I did, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. What areas of that handle did you swab?
The entire perimeter of the area where you would grab to turn the door.
Did you do both the interior and the exterior?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Looking at your notebook, what is State Exhibit 67?
67 is a swab of the exterior door handle.
Okay, so the side leading to the hallway.
Yes, ma'am.
And then what is 68?
is a swab of the interior door handle, the doorknob.
And then did you also swab the light switch of the bathroom there in the hallway bathroom?
I did, yes ma'am.
Okay, and what is State's Exhibit 69?
69 is a swab of that light switch.
All right, at this point I'm going to move on to the living room. I'll be fixing your notebooks away under one more. Right, did you have an opportunity to look at State 70A through UUU? This would be the photos of the living room and exterior of the home.
Yes ma'am, I did.
And were they accurate depictions of how they looked when you processed it that day?
They were.
All right, looking at 70A, what do we see here?
This is actually, I'm standing in the dining room area and I'm taking a picture of that lamp. So that's the living room in front of us and the hallway is to the right.
This is the lamp that we saw from the hallway where you swabbed the light bulb.
Yes ma'am.
Okay. And in 70B, what do we see here?
This is another angle looking in towards the living room so you can see that side of the living room in the home.
And in 70C?
Is another angle. Now I'm just in the back corner and I'm looking down the hallway in the living room area.
And 70D?
Another angle of that living room.
What do we see in 70E?
In 70E, I located on the drywall, there was an area, sorry, there was an area, an indentation in the wall here. I'd also located a projectile in the living room area as well, so I believe that this indentation was made from the projectile.
And in 70F?
Is another angle, it's a side angle view of this window area in the living room. So this was the far left window and this was the indentation here.
Okay, and 70G?
Is now a photo where I put a scale in it to show the size of it and the shape of the indentation.
And 70H?
That's the projectile that I located. It was just off of the wall on the rug where that indentation in the wall was.
Okay. Can you show us the projectile?
It's right here.
It kind of looks like it's the same color as the
It
flower.
does.
And so this shot, you said, would have hit the wall, created that indentation, bounced off the wall, and landed here on the rug.
That's what it appeared to do.
Okay. Looking at 70I.
This is another shot from the living room. Essentially, I'm standing right at the end of the hallway looking into the living room. So you can see the living room, and that's the front foyer area, that front door.
The projectile that landed on the rug, did you impound that projectile?
I did, yes ma'am.
Okay, looking in your living room notebook, first sleeve, what is State's Exhibit 71?
It is the projectile that was located on the rug.
Okay. And that would have been, correct me if I'm wrong, over here, closer to this wall.
Yes ma'am, that where you're pointing is where the indentation was on the wall, and then that edge of the rug area right below it was where the projectile was located.
And the projectile at State's Exhibit 71, almost even with the edge of the couch closest to that wall?
Yes ma'am.
Just wanted to give us some reference. All All right, looking at 70J, what do we see here?
This is a photograph of the couch in the living room that's looking right towards the front door area. I located suspected blood on the couch cushion here, and there was a tree, it was a fake tree, a potted tree that had been toppled over, and you can see part of Brandy Peters' legs here in the front entry door.
What do we see in 70K?
Is another image kind of facing towards the front door. I'm also getting closer into the couch area where I located the suspected blood, and you can also see multiple areas of suspected blood throughout the house. Or, I'm sorry, the living room and the foyer.
What about in 70L?
That's a closer up image of the suspected blood areas I saw. It was difficult to photograph because it was black leather and the blood was a dark color as well, but you can see this area here is what I was looking at.
In 70M, did you put a scale in that area?
I did.
All right, looking at 70 in, is that an up close view of the scale next to the suspected blood?
Yes, ma'am, it is getting closer in on that couch cushion.
Did you swab that area of suspected blood?
I did.
Okay, looking in your notebook at stage 72, can you tell us what stage 72 is?
It is a swab of that suspected blood area.
All right, what do we see in 70O?
And 70O is the other side, another angle of the living room area. I'm actually standing in the dining room kitchen area looking out towards the living room, and this is the front door foyer area.
And 70P?
Is me just kind of turning towards my left as I'm taking the photograph, so now you can see more of the foyer area, and you can see Brandy Peters where we found her.
70Q?
Is the other side of that foyer area, and here would lead into the kitchen and the garage. So I'm just on the other side of and I'm standing in the living room essentially now.
70R?
Is more photographs of all the blood spatter that we saw in the front foyer area.
70Q? I showed you that. 70S?
Is a photograph of the carpet area just outside where Brandy's body was located, and you can see all of the areas of blood or suspected blood that I located in the carpet area as well.
What do we see here underneath this piece of hair?
There's a red shovel. This is actually, you were right, this was a piece of hair, and there was a red shovel here, and this was the plant, the tree area that I mentioned from the other view of the living room.
And did you collect the red shovel?
I did.
Did you process the red shovel?
I collected a swab of the handle of the shovel. There did not appear to be any suspected blood on it at all. It was just odd that it was so close to her body at the time, and we weren't sure what her injuries, the extent of her injuries at that point.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked and stipulated as State's Exhibit 76. Would you mind using your gloves just to take that out of the packaging? Does that appear to almost be like a child-sized shovel?
It does. It's a very small shovel.
Okay. And you swabbed the handle of it, you said?
I did this handle area of it.
Okay. And it has some dirt on it?
It does.
Okay, that's all. Thank you. All right, looking at your notebook, State's Exhibit 77.
Yes, ma'am.
What is 77?
It's a swab of the handle of that shovel that I just showed you.
Okay. What do we see in 70T?
This is another picture of the foyer area after we had removed Brandy Peters' body.
70W?
Is the top portion of the foyer area above the front door. I was documenting the blood spatter area that still, it went as high up to that window. So I was trying to document all the areas of the blood.
You mentioned moving her body. I wanted to go back to that. Did you move her body as well as the other bodies in the home?
We did. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and how was that done?
Very carefully. The children, my former supervisor, Joanne Maltese at the time, was in the bathroom with myself, so the two of us removed the children, one by one from the tub and photo documented them. They were placed in evidence body bags, and I evidence taped and sealed those body bags, and they were later brought into the garage where investigator April Wilder, or Dubrava at the time, she stayed until the funeral home came to take the children and Brandy away. For Brandy, it was forensic specialist Henderson and myself. We took her out of the foyer area and placed her in a body bag in the dining room area. As to avoid, we didn't want to process any part of her body while we were in that area because we didn't want to disturb any of the evidence while we were doing it.
Okay. After she was placed in a body bag, was it sealed, and did you actually attend her autopsy?
I did for Brandy, yes ma'am.
Okay. Going to 70W, is this a photo of the blood spatter on the front door and towards the top of the door, towards the window?
Yes ma'am.
Okay. And 70B, what do we see here?
That's also the front door, and you can see the areas of blood on the bottom of the door as well, and the side wall of the foyer showing the blood there as well.
Okay. And 70U?
It's still the same foyer area. I'm just documenting all of the different areas I can where the suspected blood was located.
Okay, and this was after she was removed.
Yes.
Looking at 70X, what do we see here?
This was a large area of suspected blood that was located in the carpet from the other overall picture I took. So I was just zooming in here to show that I collected a swab of that large area of the suspected blood.
Okay. Were you able to swab every drop of blood in this entire living room area?
No, ma'am.
How did you go about trying to, or selecting the areas to process or to swab blood?
Well, we determined, we just selected different, from the large area sections, we believed that because of the extent of the injuries to Brandy, the blood was hers. So we picked areas on every part of the wall and also the carpet area here, so you can see that there's suspected blood areas around it as well. But we picked just one specific area to take those one swabs in each different area in the home.
So trying to swab one spot from each area?
Yes,
blood.
ma'am.
Gotcha. Okay, so here in 70X, did you swab the suspected blood in this photo?
I did.
Okay, and I want to turn your attention to states 73 in your notebook.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
is state 73?
It is a swab of that area of suspected blood.
Okay, and state 74. What do we see in photo 70Y?
It's another larger area of suspected blood that I collected a swab of. You can see that it's right at the edge of the foyer on the carpet area.
And is the swab that you took of that suspected blood, is that state 74 in your notebook?
It is, yes, ma'am.
Okay. What do we see in photo 70Z?
This is another area of suspected blood that I took a swab of, but that's actually on the tile in the foyer area after we had removed Brandy's body.
Looking in your notebook, is the swab of that suspected blood on the tile, is that state exhibit 75?
It is, yes, ma'am.
Just a moment. What do we see in 70AA?
I'm standing in the kitchen area taking a photograph of the foyer area, and Brandy was still in the foyer at the time.
And 70BB?
This is a photograph after Joanne Maltese had done leucocrystal violet. It's a dye that stains for hemoglobins in the blood, and she'd use a stain which turns it a violet color, and I was documenting what we saw after the dye was used.
70 cc.
Is another photo just showing more of the carpet area of what was seen after we did the leucocrystal violet.
Is it the proteins in the blood that makes it turn that color?
Essentially, yes.
What do we see in 70 DD?
This is the inside of the front door to the home, and I had processed this door for latent fingerprints, and this is the powder, the powder that I'd use so it turns it a black color. It's bichromatic powder. And so I put a scale in here to show that there were images that I noticed that there were latents developed on that door.
Okay, did you see whether these latents were, did you process them and see if they were of any value?
They were determined not to be a value. So I did process them with the powder, and I took photographs and I lifted them, but they were determined not to be a value for comparison.
Okay, so you couldn't compare them to anyone?
No, ma'am.
So if a fingerprint or a handprint is too smudged, that could cause you to not be able to make a comparison on it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but you did photograph it?
I did.
And what was the purpose of putting the leucocrystal violet there in the foyer?
Joanne Maltese did it, so you'd have to ask her.
Alaska? All right, so looking at 70EE, what is this?
These were just kind of pattern images that came up after using the leucocrystal violet staining. So because I wasn't sure what it was, I documented it with a scale. It appeared that it might have been maybe some kind of boot print or some partial kind of shoe print. So we documented it to be looked at a later date.
Okay, and this is kind of away from the significant area of the blood, closer to the wall up there in the foyer?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What do we see in 70FF?
These are other kind of just stained impression areas that came on the carpet that you hadn't seen before, and just because of the patterns of them, I thought that they were odd, so I was documenting that as well.
So anything that contained protein in the carpet might have been illuminated violet that you didn't previously see?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What did we see in state 70GG?
These are just other evidence markers after we'd removed Brandy's body of items of evidence that I'd located and collected inside this foyer area.
Okay, I want to go through each one of them one by one, starting with the one closest to the right side there in that
Yes.
photo.
Okay.
Looking at 70HH, what do we see here?
It was a section of gold teeth that I located on the floor there that I photographed and collected.
Is this an up-close view of the teeth?
It is.
Okay, did you impound the teeth?
I did.
And are they made of, it looked like it's made of metal?
Yes, it was some kind of gold-colored metal.
All right, looking at State Exhibit 78 in your binder, what is 78?
78 are those metal teeth.
Looking at 70JJ, what do we have here?
So I located another gold bubble type earring that was similar to the one in the master bedroom area, and this here was an acrylic nail that I located on the floor.
Okay, and this is going to be closest to, this would be the door leading to the outside of the house, the front door, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What do we see in 70KK?
That's a close-up picture of that gold hoop earring that I'd mentioned earlier.
Okay, and in 70LL?
Is a close-up image of that nail. You can see it right here.
All right, looking in your binder at 79 and 80. What are 79 and 80?
79 is the gold earring, the gold-colored earring, and 80 is the fingernail.
All right, looking at 70MM, what do we see here?
These are I've added scale, so these yellow colored, this is taped scale, so it's just a measurement. When blood spatter analysis is done, they generally they need the measurement to know how tall and how high and wide everything was in the room. So we documented that entire foyer area because it had so much spatter along all of the walls in case it needed to be sent off to a blood spatter expert at a later date. So because we don't generally ever get to keep a crime scene for a very long period of time, we had to document everything because we were going to lose it later. So this was documented in case anything needed to be done later to that foyer area for spatter documentation purposes.
Did you process the door handle on the front door?
I swabbed it, yes ma'am.
Okay. And did you also process the deadbolt?
Yes ma'am, it was swabbed as well.
Okay, can you turn to 81 and 82 in your notebook and tell us what those items are?
81 is the swab of the interior front door handle, and 82 is a swab of that interior deadbolt.
Looking at 70 in, what do we see here?
This is one of the sections of the foyer wall that had the tape, the measurement tape, I'm sorry, I was trying to think of the word, markings in it, as well as showing the blood spatter areas on the wall.
Okay. And what about 70 TTT?
This is one of the blood spatter walls as well in the foyer, and it shows a scale where I collected a swab of suspected blood from that wall.
70 00. Is that the most close-up photo you have of that?
That's, yes, the close-up image of the swab that I was collecting, or the suspected blood, I'm sorry.
And the swab of the entryway wall, is that 83 in your notebook? Say 83.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, looking at the interior front door, 70 pp. What do we see here?
This is showing a scale, my evidence scale as well, of the area of suspected blood that I was going to swab from the front door area.
Okay, so you see a front door that has pretty concentrated with all the blood spatter. So this is the area that you swabbed, that you saw a significant portion.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and looking at in your notebook, states 84. Is states 84 the swab of the suspected blood on the front door?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and just for your reference, I know you probably can't read that from here. This would be your item 139. What are we looking at in this photo?
This is the west side wall of the front entryway, and this was a swab from that wall that I was taking of suspected blood.
Okay, and this is 70 RR. And then 70 SS, what do we see here?
We're getting closer into the image of the swab that I was collecting.
And what about here?
That's a close-up picture of that suspected blood.
In your notebook, what is States Exhibit 85?
Is a swab of that suspected blood.
All right, looking at 70 UU. What is 70 UU? What do we see?
This is the front door to the home, the exterior of the front door to the home.
Did you swab the exterior portion of the door handle as well?
I did.
In your notebook, what is States Exhibit 90?
Is a swab of the exterior front door handle.
And it looks like she has kind of like a little front porch here.
It is, yes ma'am.
State 70 VV. Another image of the front door.
This is another image before the Luco Crystal Violet was applied to the front door.
What do we see in 70 WW?
I took a photograph. This is the bottom, the walkway into the front door, and there was suspected blood on the outside of the home as well in that front area, and I was documenting that. It's showing where I'm collecting a swab of a suspected blood area. That's on that front door. You can see my evidence scale. It's kind of dead center in that door there.
And 70YY?
That's a closer up image of the swab of suspected blood that I was going to collect from that area.
All right, looking in your notebook at states 91, what is states 91?
Is a swab of that suspected blood area.
On the exterior front door?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Looking at 70CZ, what do we see here?
That's the front entryway, the walkway area that I'd showed in the previous pictures of the suspected blood, and this was the area that I was swabbing.
Okay. And did you take a swab of the suspected blood here?
I did.
And in your notebook, is that states exhibit 92
Yes, ma'am, it is.
from the front entryway?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What do we see in 70 AAA?
This was the front door. It's the outside of the front door, and it's showing the application after the leucocrystal violet was applied to it, so I was documenting the results from the leucocrystal violet.
And 70 BBB?
Is another just angle from that front door. It's looking onto the siding. We located suspected blood spatter outside on the siding area as well, so that's that yellow tape documentation that I'd done similar to that in the foyer.
What are we looking at in 70 CCC? What area?
That is that siding area. So if you're facing the front door, it's directly to the right of you was the siding wall, and that's where I located the suspected blood spatter. So that's my documentation there and a scale of where I was intending to collect a swab of that suspected blood.
A closer view of your scale and the suspected blood?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And looking in your notebook, can you tell us what states exhibit 93 is?
Is a swab of that suspected blood area.
What do we see in 70 EEE? I'm going to zoom in a little bit.
So this is the suspected blood spatter that I located on that exterior siding area, and there was some kind of blood spatter documentation that had been made by Joanne Maltese there. So those are the lines and the markings that you're seeing there.
And you said Maltese was your supervisor at the time?
Yes.
Okay. It looks like these pictures are pretty bright. Was this taken the next day?
It was the 2 days after, so it was on the 22nd of November.
Okay. All right. Finally, I want to move on to the kitchen.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry.
Here, I'll take this from you.
All right. What do we see in 95A?
This is a photograph from standing back towards the garage entry door facing into the kitchen area of the home.
In the photos of the kitchen 95A through E, you had an opportunity to look at them before court,
I did.
and they're accurate depictions of how they looked that day.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, looking at 95B, what do we see here?
This is the island area of the kitchen. I just moved over a little bit further, and I'm standing inside of the garage now taking that picture.
And 95C,
Is the trash can in the kitchen area.
95D,
I'm standing now inside of the kitchen and taking a picture out into the living room and just showing the island area of that kitchen and the dining area as well.
Final photo?
It's just a different angle, so you can see the garage entry door is right there, and it also shows the front entry foyer area into the dining and living room areas of the kitchen.
Did you swab or process any areas in the kitchen?
I did. Can I refer to my notes? I'm sorry.
Oh, yes. Let me first ask you about the phone plug insert. Did you swab that?
I did.
Okay, and what about the faucet, the faucet sink?
I swabbed the handle, the hot and cold handle of the faucet sink in the kitchen.
Okay, so both handles?
Yes, I believe it was just one handle that went hot and cold.
Okay.
I
And
don't
can you,
recall.
I see it. So can you show us in this photo the areas that you swabbed?
I don't recall where the phone jack was, so I see that there's a section here, but I don't want to be misspoken. I know I would have taken up like a different photo, a close-up photo, but there was a phone jack in the kitchen, and there was a corded phone, but the jack had been removed from it, but there didn't appear to be any damage to the jack at all. I just took the swab as a precautionary measure. And then the faucet here was the handle that I swabbed where you would lift up to make the water hot or cold in the sink.
I'm looking in your notebook. Are states exhibit 96 and 97 those swabs?
I'm sorry, you took the notebook.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was a test.
All right, so looking at that notebook.
Yes.
C6 exhibit 96.
Yes, ma'am.
What is 96?
It's a swab of the kitchen phone plug insert into the wall.
And what about 97?
Is a swab of the kitchen faucet sink handle.
Okay. We see in one of these photos that there's a disposable camera on the counter. C exhibit 95B. What did you do with that disposable camera?
I collected it as evidence.
Okay, and do you have it there in front of you today as States Exhibit 99?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and are the processed photos from that camera in there as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have an opportunity to look through those photos before court today?
I did.
Okay, is it mostly photos of Javante playing in the yard?
It is.
All right, so you told us that you attended the autopsy of Brandy Peters.
I did.
Okay. I'm gonna just take a second to shift some of our evidence around and bring the autopsy evidence up to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, may I go back here?
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you. Thank you. All right, so we're going to see the photos that were taken through the medical examiner. I just want to talk about the items that you collected from the autopsy.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you take scrapings of Brandy Peters' fingernails?
I did.
Okay, can you tell us, or I want to turn your attention to the notebook in front of you, 103A through J. I'd like for you to walk us through what each of those items are, and also just tell us in general how you scrape a person's fingernails.
Okay. So we were provided, it's basically a wooden stick for women that do manicures. You may understand it. It's kind of like a flathead screwdriver on the end, so it's angled so that it can get under your nail bed, and we scrape along through your nail. So what I would do is scrape that area, each individually. I did, in this particular case, every fingernail I did with a separate scraper, and then itemized each single one as a piece of evidence.
Okay, and did she also have acrylic nails as well as natural nails?
She did.
Do you scrape acrylic nails in the same manner that you scrape the natural nails?
You do, it still just goes underneath the nail into below your nail bed.
Okay, can you walk us through 103A through J and tell us what each of those items are?
Yes, ma'am. 103A was the scraping I took of her right thumb. 103B is of her right index finger. 103C is her right middle finger. 103D is her right ring finger. 103E is her right little finger. 103F was her left thumb. 103G is her left index. 103H was her left middle. 103I was her left ring. And 103J was her left little.
Did you also take swabs of Brandy Peters' neck?
I did.
Okay, what is State's Exhibit K in your notebook? I'm sorry, 103K.
Is a swab of the left side of Brandy Peters' neck.
Okay, and what about 103L?
Is a swab of the right side of her neck.
Did you also swab her hands?
I did.
What is 103M?
Is a swab of the back of her left hand.
And 103N?
Is a swab of the palm of her left hand.
And how do you swab her hands? How did you do that?
So in this particular case, it was the same way where I used the large Q-tip and the vial of the sterile water, and I just used the entire, for the back of her hand, I'd swab the back of her hand, and for the palm, I swabbed the entire palm of her hand.
Okay. Looking at 103O, what is 103O?
Is a swab of the back of her right hand.
And what about 103P?
Is a swab of the palm of her right hand.
Okay. What is 103Q?
It's a swab of her right earlobe.
And what about 103R and S?
R and S were little black hairs that I located on, for 103R, I'm sorry, it was a hair from her left pinky. I located a hair and collected that. And 103S is a hair from her right ring finger.
Did you locate an additional hair from her right pinky that's 103T?
I did.
Okay. Did you clip some of her nails?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you tell us about that?
We used a sterile nail clipper at the autopsy, and I collected, in this particular case, I just held a piece of paper underneath it, and I clipped all of her nails as low as I could go with the nail clippers, and I collected an item for her left hand and an item for all of her right hand.
Okay, and is States 103U the nail clippings from her right hand?
Yes, ma'am.
And 103V is the nail clippings for her left hand?
It is.
All right, what is 103W?
It was a projectile that was located in the top of her head.
And can you tell us about how you're not the person who's taking the projectiles from her body at an autopsy, right?
No, ma'am.
That's going to be the medical examiner.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How do you go about getting these projectiles from the medical examiner?
We actually have a form. The medical examiner has their own essential property receipt. So whatever they hand over to us, such as her clothing, the items, all of these items that I took from Brandy, they have on their property receipt that I sign, saying that they gave it to me, the date and the time, and then I sign saying that I received it all and that I've taken it.
Okay, so the medical examiner is taking these projectiles she's finding from her from Brandy Peters, and she's giving them to you to be impounded into evidence at Tallahassee Police Department.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you said 103W was a projectile found in the top of Brandy Peters' head.
Yes, ma'am.
And what is 103X?
It's a projectile from her left chest wall.
Okay, and 103Y?
Was a projectile located on the left anterior abdominal wall.
And 103Z?
Is a projectile from the right side of her jaw.
103AA?
Is a projectile from the left upper arm of Brandy Peters and foreign material from a scalp wound.
Okay. And what is 103BB?
It was hair that was located on the right sock of Brandy Peters at autopsy.
And did you collect a number of items from the autopsy?
I did.
Okay. What is 103CC? It should be in a package in front of you
Oh, I'm sorry.
that you have, sorry.
I hid them all. 103cc is the red and black wig that was taken off of Brandy's head.
Okay, so after the medical examiner removed the wig, she gave it to you and you packaged it there in the packaging you have in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and in another package there in front of you, what is 103DD?
Is the pair of socks that Brandy was wearing.
Okay. Did you also impound the clothing she was wearing on her torso and legs that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us what those items are in 103EE and FF?
Oh, these are here, I'm sorry. This is 103EE, and this is the yellow tank top, and it was a pink bra that Brandy was wearing at autopsy.
All right, and what was she wearing on her legs?
103FF are the blue jeans and the black underwear that she was wearing when we found her.
All right, going back to your notebook for just a second, did you process an item that came from Brandy Peters' mouth during the autopsy?
I did, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what is 103GG?
It was the tongue ring that I collected from her tongue.
And what is 103HH? This should be another package.
This is the sexual assault kit that was taken by the medical examiner that I collected as evidence.
Okay. And what is 103II?
I don't think that I have that.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think that I have that.
Okay, let me ask you about one more thing. Did you take a buccal swab from Brandy Peters during the autopsy?
I did.
Did you want her to answer your question about or are you withdrawing that?
Did you take recorded prints of Brandy Peters?
I did.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to look at the recorded prints before court today?
I did.
And were they in the same or substantially the same condition as when you impounded them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You said that you don't see them up there in front of you?
No, ma'am.
Okay. We'll take a break in just a second and I'll locate them. I want to, her recorded prints though, what are those?
At the autopsy, I took recordings of her fingerprints and her palm prints for any kind of comparison purposes that we were going to need to do later in the investigation. So essentially what I did is, or what I do is I put powder on their hands, and we have sticky tape that we take off, and it goes onto a card to record the fingerprints for comparisons later.
Okay. And you told us that's 103 II? All right, and you said that you took a buccal swab of Brandy
she's-
Peters.
She is not able to answer your
I'm
question.
sorry, yeah, I
Ms.
didn't,
Oh,
I
I'm
didn't
sorry.
know the number.
But you did have an opportunity to look at it before
I
court
did.
today?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And when you saw it, it was in the same condition as when you impounded it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so looking at, all right, so,
We're about due for a break. If you want a minute to sort this out.
okay, that's fine.
I mean, do you want to take a short break?
That'll be fine.
Okay, we'll take 10 minutes.
We actually live right in Coral Springs now. So and both my husband and I are from there, but I'm from Dade County and he's from Plantation. I grew up in Dade County.
And then we moved to live at Temple in Davie. It's right off of the University and Dover Dryer.
Oh, we rented a townhouse in Davie off of University Nova when we first moved down there. It was right on the golf course.
Arrowhead.
Yes.
And then we lived the one in front of
remain standing for the jury.
Everybody be seated, please. You may proceed, Ms. Dugan.
Okay. I want to turn your attention to State's Exhibit 111. Did you take a buccal swab of Brandy Peters?
I did, yes, ma'am.
And what is a buccal swab?
A buccal swab is where we just take that Q-tip I mentioned earlier, and we just swab the inside of the cheeks, the saliva of the cheeks, for any kind of DNA testing standard. So if they wanted to compare it to her, they would have her DNA on file.
And you did this at the autopsy when you processed her body for all the other things you told us about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you see State's 111 in front of you, her buccal swab?
I do.
Okay. Before the break, we talked about the recorded prints that you took of hers at the autopsy. You told us how you took them. State's Exhibit 103II, I believe. Are those now in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you hold those up and show them to the jury?
Yes. These were the fingerprints that I took of her, and they're kind of, my evidence label's on the front side, I'm sorry, but these are the palm prints that you can see kind of on either side.
And then that way you'd have her prints for any comparison that you could make if you found a latent print of value in her home?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so let's talk about the latent prints in this case. You told us earlier that you processed that bathroom window where the screen was damaged for latent prints, but did not find any of value, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you process anywhere else in the house for latent prints?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Where all in the house did you look for latent prints?
The latent print processing that I did was in the master bathroom window, the interior and exterior, the master bathroom door, and the toilet room door. I processed the interior and exterior. The hallway bathroom, the sink, the toilet area, the tub area, and the interior and exterior door. All three of the foyer walls in the main hallway where Brandy Peters' body was found, and the interior garage entry door.
Okay. Were you able to find any of value?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, where did you find latent prints of value?
The of value prints were located on the bathtub faucet where the water comes out of it, not the handle, but where like the spout, I believe you can call it, where the water comes out, and also on the interior garage door handle.
Okay, so looking back at 57D, can you show us with your laser in this photo where you found those latent prints of value in the hallway bathroom?
Yes, ma'am. It would be right here on the top of that spout of the bathroom where the water pours out of.
And were you able to do a comparison of the latent prints of value found in the bathroom to the standards of Brandy Peters that you took at the autopsy?
A comparison was done to Brandy Peters, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what were the results?
It was identified to her palm. I believe it was her left palm, I'm sorry. It was her left palm.
Okay, so her left palm was the latent print that you found on the hallway bathroom faucet?
Yes, ma'am.
Of the tub. Okay, and you said you found another one of value on the exterior door handle leading to the garage?
The interior door handle.
Interior door
leading
handle.
into. Yes, ma'am.
Leading to the garage, okay. And did you do the comparison on that, or did you do any comparisons on that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, that was done by, I believe, your supervisor, Maltese?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you impound into evidence all of the latent fingerprints that you processed in this case, whether they were of value or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what do you see in front of you as State's Exhibit 129?
This is the evidence envelope of the latent prints that I collected from the crime scene.
Okay, so those are all of the latent prints that you found?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but the only two that were of value enough that any comparison could be made were on those two locations that you just told me about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In all your processing of the home, in all of these rooms, throughout all of the items found, everything collected, was any cell phone ever located in the home?
No, ma'am.
That's all. Thank you.
question this witness, and you have to kind of let things move along. She doesn't do some of the comparisons and other things, so she's doing a particular function, so let it, let it progress. But anyway, do you have a question? All right, we'll go sidebar. So the question from the jury was, why did you not process the back door for prints? Is there any particular reason?
There wasn't. We did the swabs for the door handle of the interior and the exterior, so there isn't. I actually don't have an answer for you.
Any follow-up, Ms. Dugan?
So on the front door and the back door, you swab each side of the door handle,
Yes, ma'am.
interior and exterior, okay? And then for the garage door, that's where you look for the latents. The door leading to the garage is where
Yes,
you look
ma'am.
for the latents. All right, thank you.
Mr. Prince? All right, you can step down. Call your next witness.
They call us Caroline Carpentier Wilder.
Would you face the clerk and be sworn, please, ma'am?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Have a seat, please, ma'am. May I proceed?
Good afternoon. Can you introduce yourself to our jury and then spell your name for our court reporter, please?
My name is Caroline Wilder, CarolineWilder.
And what was your name in November of 2010?
Caroline Carpentier, Carpentieri.
Okay. And in November 2010, what were you doing at the time? Where did you work?
I was a forensic specialist at the Tallahassee Police Department.
Okay. And how long were you a forensic specialist with the Tallahassee Police Department?
At that time, it was only a few months, but my career there was about 8 years.
8 years. Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about your education and training to work in the forensics department at TPD?
Sure. I attended Florida State University, and I got a bachelor's in biophysics. From there, I went to the police academy, got my law enforcement standards. I then got hired on at the police department in March of 2010, and there was a 6-month, very intensive in-house training program, and I was also sent to various schools around the state and country for different disciplines.
Okay. And did you respond to 908 Saddle Creek Run on November 20th, 2010?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, were you there with the forensics team that day to help process the scene?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I want to turn your attention to a couple of items that, were you able to look at these items in front of you before court today?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I want to first show you State's Exhibit, the photos, 70 GGG through TTT.
Yes.
Are those photos, do they appear to be accurate depictions of the areas that you collected evidence in the living room and exterior areas of the house?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Could you run by those letters one more time, please, Ms. Dugan?
70 GGG, G for good, through TTT for Tom.
All right, what do we see in GGG, 70 GGG?
GGG is near the front foyer area. The tile area right here on the left side of the screen is directly in front of the front door, and then the carpeting right next to the tile. And there was a artificial tree right there in that area as well.
What do we see in 70 HHH, I guess a zoomed in photo right between these two evidence markers?
Yes, ma'am. The same string that was seen in the previous one is right here. And then directly in the middle of the photograph, there was an artificial fingernail that was found.
And then I, what do we see here?
That's the close-up of the artificial nail.
And then JJJ?
Same close-up, but with a scale and with a numbered marker.
And did you collect this artificial nail?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to turn your attention to the notebook in front of you, the sleeve with State Exhibit 88 inside.
Yes, ma'am.
What is State Exhibit 88?
Suspected fingernail acrylic from carpet by turned over tree just past front entrance foyer.
Okay, so that's the nail that you impounded, is State Exhibit 88?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Looking at 70 KKK, what do we see here?
This is of that same area. You can still see the tile in this bottom left and the carpet, and this was the tree as we found it. It was turned over on its side.
What do we see in LLL?
This is more of a close-up of the tree. There was some suspected blood on the tree, and there was also a suspected, what we thought to be a bullet hole in one of the branches.
What about MMM?
That is the closer up of that hole right there with a scaled numbered marker right next to it.
NNN?
That's a close-up picture of the suspected blood that was on that same tree.
And did you swab the suspected blood in this photo?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to turn your attention to State 86 in the binder.
Yes.
What is 86?
Swab of suspected blood from branch of artificial tree that was turned over by the front door.
What do we see in 70 000?
This right here is on actually the exterior of the house. This is, I believe, the corner of the house. The door is further closer to the camera where I'm at. And there's a couple of suspected hairs just to the right of that front door area outside.
In 70 PPP?
It's a closer up photograph with a scaled numbered marker on the bottom.
I'm looking in your binder at States 87. What is States 87?
Hair from east wall outside of front door.
Did you process the scene not only on November 20th, but also, I believe, 2 days later, you came back with your team to continue processing the scene?
Yes.
Too much of a scene to be able to do it all in one day?
We wanted to make sure we could get everything possible.
Looking at 70 QQQ, what do we see here?
QQQ, this is to the left of the front door area. The front door would be just out of the frame here. And then this was the front porch area. There was some suspected blood found on the ground.
And 70 RRR.
Same front porch, and the suspected blood was in one of these shadows.
And 70 SSS.
That is the drop of suspected blood found just outside with a scaled numbered marker right next to it.
Did you swab that suspected blood?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, in your notebook, if you would look at State's Exhibit 94, please. What is State's Exhibit 94?
Swab of suspected blood from front porch area left of the front door.
And what do we see in what do we see in 70 UUU here?
This is from the outside looking into the garage area.
Okay, so this would be taken in the garage, and through this door would be the kitchen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you collect any evidence from the master bedroom?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to turn your attention to, should be the package there closest to the jury, yes ma'am, State's Exhibit 39. What is State's Exhibit 39?
Miscellaneous paperwork from master bedroom entertainment center.
Okay, and this was previously 39A and B, now just 39. Can you open 39?
Thank you.
When you looked at the packaging here on 39, is it in the same condition as when you impounded it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, just want to show you the very front of 39. We'll look at the rest of it with another witness. But does this appear to be the paperwork that you impounded that you found in the master bedroom?
Yes, ma'am.
And where did you find this in the master bedroom?
This paperwork was found, excuse me, it was found in the entertainment center.
Like on top of the entertainment center?
I don't recall.
Okay. Did you also impound some trash bags from the home?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Want to turn your attention to the other package in front of you? What is State's Exhibit 101?
Trash bags from cabinet above drawer. Oh, sorry, from cabinet under above drawer.
Okay. And so those are trash bags that you found there in the kitchen?
Yes.
Okay. I want to turn your attention to the second set of photos in front of you, 130 A through P.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, are those photos of the home as they appeared the day that y'all processed it?
I don't recall the date the photographs were taken, but yes, this is of the home.
Okay. And it appears the same as when you processed it with photos?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
What do we see in 130A?
130A shows the inside of the front door area and the foyer area. There was a lot of broken glass and suspected blood. This is post-processing. We processed the scene with some chemicals to try to enhance any patterns that might have been seen. So this was just an overall of how it was after we processed.
Okay. And then 130B is a photo of some more of the patterns in the area leading from the door to the rest of the home?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then 130C?
This is of that front tile area as well, just trying to photograph any patterns that might have been there.
And 130D, an up-close photo of some of those patterns?
Yes, ma'am.
130F?
Same thing.
And then 130G, what do we see here?
130G is also a close-up of those suspected patterns, but I have added in a scale. I thought it could have been a shoe impression, possibly. So in that case, we put the numbered scale, or the rulered scale down to be able to accurately get the size later if necessary.
So you're trying to document anything that could possibly be used in the future.
Correct.
Okay. Are a lot of these patterns kind of smudged and hard to make out?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you using a scale on every type of pattern you can find here?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is the 130T? What do we see here?
This is yet again of the front foyer area. The tile is up here in the upper left, the upturned tree, and then more of the processing that we did with the chemicals.
Did you try to use a scale on some of these patterns?
Yes, ma'am.
What do we see in 130N?
This is actually the master bathroom area. I'm standing in the master bedroom looking into the bathroom. On the floor there was what was suspected to be a shoe impression, or a possible. So I took a photograph before any processing was done of that floor.
What do we see in 130N?
This was of that possible shoe impression. I saw some marks on the floor that could have been, so I took a photograph of the impression prior to processing.
And 130O?
Same thing, I believe.
Okay, so these smudges that we see here in this photo, you photographed these and tried to process them, thinking it could possibly be some sort of shoe impression?
Possibly, yes, ma'am.
And what do we see in 130P?
This is after processing. I used, it's called bichromatic powder. It's the typical black powder that I'm sure you've seen on TV. Tried to powder and lift any impressions that might have been enhanced. And in this case, I didn't feel that anything got enhanced, but I took a photograph afterwards just to show what I could or couldn't find.
So it wasn't enough to lift to make any comparison, but you did photograph what you tried to process,
Yes, ma'am.
or what you processed. Okay. No further questions?
Ross?
Ma'am, I just want to clarify, you were able to identify several possible footwear impressions that you took pictures of and measurements of during the course of your investigation, correct?
Yes, sir.
You personally didn't feel that you could do anything with those, either compare them or identify a class or anything like that, correct?
Well, I'm not a shoe wear examiner and never was, but I didn't feel, in my opinion, that they would be good for any type of comparison for those shoe wear examiners.
And to clarify, you'd never been qualified at that time as an expert in footwear impression?
Correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
Further, Ms. Dugan?
No, sir.
And maybe I ought to just clarify on that, just from a legal standpoint. Before somebody comes in and offers an opinion comparing things, they have to be what we call qualified as an expert. So what they're saying, that's not her field of expertise, so she would not be allowed to try to make that kind of opinion. All right, you can step down.
Thank you, sir.
You want to keep her subject to recall?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
You can be allowed to visit me after.
All right, you'll be on call.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Good. Good. Next witness.
Take hold, Monica Peters.
Face the clerk and be sworn, please, ma'am. Raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Ms. Peters. Will you state your name and spell it for our court reporter, please?
Monica Peters, Monica Peters.
Okay. And how do you know Brandy Peters?
She's my sister.
And who is Mary Rashad Williams?
That's my mama.
And she's also Brandy Peters' mom?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Does Miss Williams live here in Tallahassee too?
Yeah, she lives in,
You don't have to give us her address, but she lives here in town?
oh yeah.
Okay. And do you live and work here in Tallahassee as well?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, before Miss Brandy Peters passed away, did the three of you, Miss Brandy Peters, and your mom, Mary Rashad Williams, did y'all see each other or talk on a daily basis?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And were you and your mother very active in Brandy and her children's lives?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were the twins supposed to be actually staying at your mom's house the night of this incident?
Yeah, they was.
Okay. Now, did you used to live with Brandy Peters and her children?
Yes, for a little while. When I first moved back here.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I think, would you mind?
You would,
I said yes for a little while.
all right.
I
So
did.
if you would move forward a little bit
Okay.
further, I think we'd hear you better. Okay?
Probably because
Thank
I got congested too, so.
So you said you lived with Brandy Peters and her children for a little while?
Yes.
What's for a little while? Few years, few months, few weeks?
Probably a couple months or so.
Few months, okay. And in your experience with living with Brandy and her children, what time did they typically eat dinner?
Usually around 5, 6 o'clock.
Okay, so kind of an earlier dinner time as opposed to later? Okay. And were you living with them, though, on November 19th, 2010, the day of this incident?
No, ma'am.
Okay. How long did Brandy live at her Saddle Creek Run home?
I think in 2, 3 years. 2 years or so.
Are you aware of any damage to Miss Peters's window screens there at her home, or any of them?
Yeah, she did have a rip in one of her screen windows in, I think it was in the master bedroom somewhere. Can't really remember.
Okay. Was that window screen damaged prior to the day of this incident, November 19th, 2010?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How long had it been damaged?
Since she moved in that house.
Since she moved in, you said?
Yes.
Was that house at 90 Creek, Saddle Creek Run, was that public housing that your sister was qualified to live in?
Yes, it was a Section 8 house.
It was Section 8 housing?
Yes.
Okay. What type of car did Brandy drive?
She didn't own a car at the time. The car that she had, that she owned it, was actually broken and needed an engine in it. She had a Pontiac Grand Prix.
Pontiac Grand Prix?
The car that was actually in her yard, that car belongs to my mama, and they would just allow her to use it.
Okay, so the only car that she has is one that doesn't belong to her, and you said belongs to your mom?
Yes.
And it's a car that your mom was allowing Brandy to use to get around?
Yes.
Okay, and it's a Pontiac Grand Prix?
No, it's the car that my mom allowed her to use was the burgundy Chrysler Concord that was parked in the driveway.
Oh, okay. All right. Was that car sometimes broken down and you'd have to give her rides?
Yeah, early in that week it was broken down. I think the water pump or something was wrong with that car early in the week.
Okay. So let's talk about November 19th, 2010. Did you?
Show you a photo that we saw earlier today, state 6A. Is this that car you were talking about that your mom allows her to use?
Yes.
Okay, so this is kind of what Brandy uses as her car.
Yes.
All right, going back to November 19th, 2010. Did you see Brandy on November 19th, 2010?
Yes, I did.
All right, tell me about that. About what time of day did you see her and where?
Had to be around 4-ish, sometime in the evening, because I was just getting home from work. I had just pulled up in the yard, just got home, and she came over with my mom, and so they had blowed, and I went over to the truck, and they said that they was going to pick up the kids. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm congested. I can't. I'm really not talking a lot, but she said they was going to pick the kids up from school,
Okay.
and she had asked me did I want to ride, and I told her, so no, I'm just getting home. I'm tired. I don't want to go or whatever. She said, well, I'm gonna take her around here and pick the kids up, and then I'm gonna drop her off back home.
Okay.
Or whatever.
And so the kids, I guess they were well, the girls were in school at the time, elementary school.
Yes.
Okay, and Javante was in some type of preschool program, or
Yeah, he was going to Bond Head Start.
did they go to aftercare after school?
Yes, the twins did.
Twins went to aftercare, and so what time would they typically get home from school?
School usually, I think school turned out around at that point like 2:50, 3:50 or something like that. So usually around 4-ish, 4 something, 5 o'clock in the evening, maybe.
Okay, so they'd get home between 4 and 5, and then you said eat dinner between 5 and 6?
Yes.
Okay, and their aftercare program, they'd stay at that from the time school let out to the time that Brandy went to pick them up?
Yes.
All right. All right, so after you saw them, were you trying to get a hold of her later that night?
Yes, I did. Usually, well, my daughter was crying because usually my daughter liked to go over there. My baby daughter, Mariah, she's 13 now, but then she was a lot younger. She always loved to go over there, and she kept worrying me about going there. And I told her, I said, well, I kept telling her, I said, well, I'm going to call her. And I think that was probably around 9-ish or something. I tried to call her or whatever, and she didn't answer the phone. The phone was going to the voicemail.
Okay.
And so I told Mariah, I said, well, she told me she's going to come get you. But I kept trying to call her, and she didn't answer the phone. And my mom had called. It had to be around 9-ish, 10, something like that. And she called me and asked me, did I speak with her? And I told her, I said, no, I didn't. I said, I tried to call her phone a few times, and she didn't answer. It's going to the voicemail. And she said the same thing with me. I tried to call in, the phone going to the voicemail. And she said that, well, she may be over at Cece's house, and she don't realize her phone went off, her phone turned off or whatever. Because it's never usually like her to turn her phone off. Like,
So
that's like, she keeps her phone on 24/7. So for her phone to just be off all night is not, you know.
So by the time you and your mom start calling her at 9, it's going straight to voicemail.
Going straight to voicemail.
And that struck y'all as very unusual, you're saying?
Yeah, it did, but I didn't, after my mom was like, well, she thought maybe she was at Cece's house.
Okay.
I didn't really put too much thought into it.
So you're not thinking she was murdered. You're thinking, well, maybe she went to see somebody. Yeah. Okay. And then you said she's always one of those people that has her phone on her, though?
All the time.
Okay. And the phone number that were you trying to call her cell phone? Is that the number you were trying to call? Her cell phone. Was that number at the time 509-8171?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you ever call her home phone that night?
Well, as I know, the home phone was off. If I'm not mistaken, that phone was not workable at the time. I think it had been disconnected.
So, like, she hadn't paid her service for it to have it working?
Yes, ma'am.
So you never even were trying to call a home phone because it was out of service.
No.
You were only calling a cell phone?
Yes.
Her cell phone, okay. So you said your mom was calling you at 9 or 10 saying, I can't get a hold of her. Did you eventually go to sleep that night?
Yes, I did. I think it was around, because I think it was around about about 11, because I think the kids, I can remember we had to do something that morning. Early in that morning hour. I know I had to do something with the kids. I think it was something at the field trip or something, but I can't really remember. And I know her kids was going to go. And I had called her, and I got up that morning probably about 5 or 6 and tried to call her again. And the phone was going to the voicemail. And I called my mama, and I told her, I said, well, I was trying to call Brandy. And I said, the phone's still going to the voicemail. She said, yeah, I got up early too trying to call her. It was going to the voicemail. She said, well, hold on. Give me a moment. Let me call Cece. She said, I got Cece's phone number. And she said, I'll call you right back. So I said, okay. So she got on I guess she called Cece. Apparently, she had to. So she called me back and she said, Cece said she's at work, but she's gonna get her son to go over there and knock on the door and tell Brandon to call you. And I said, okay.
Okay.
And
So Cece's gonna send her son to go check on Brandy. This is the Saturday morning?
yeah, this is
Okay.
early Saturday morning. So then she had called me. I told her, I said, well, okay, well, when he come back, just call. I said, well, maybe she'll call. But my mom called back and said that Cece said that her son said he seen blood on the door.
Right.
And I'm like, blood on the door. So that's when I kind of like freaked out. Throwed all the kids in the car and drove over there.
Right.
I called my brother because he lived kind of around the corner. I was calling him while I was headed over there. And I got there and I seen all the blood on the door. And like seconds with minutes with me pulling up, my brother pulled up.
Okay. And I'm sure after that point, it was pretty emotional that day.
Yeah, everything just.
Yeah. A blur, probably.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
It was like a nightmare.
So after that, after you see Brandy that day, you said she was supposed to come over and pick up your daughter Mariah to go play with her kids. Did that ever happen?
No.
She never came over?
No, she never came.
Did she ever answer your phone calls that night or call you back?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Not at all.
That's all.
Cross.
Ms. Peters, do you recall telling Officer Jernigan on November 20th that you last communicated with your sister Brandy on Friday 11/19 at 10 p.m.?
No, sir. I might have told her. I've tried to call her, and when the time when I was writing that statement, I could have probably been passed out of my mind. But I mean, I'm trying to write a statement, and my sister and her kids just being murdered. I just found them murdered in the house. I don't remember recalling telling her, because I know for facts that I didn't talk to her that night. It was no way possible that I could have talked to her that night. So I mean, maybe if I wrote on the paper, maybe it was saying that I spoke with my mom around 10ish, 9ish, 10 or something, and I told her that I tried to call her but didn't talk to her. Maybe that was what I was intended to write, and maybe I misinterpreted what I was writing with being overwhelmed and emotional. That could have possibly been the case.
I'm not asking you what you wrote. I'm asking you, do you recall?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay, no further questions.
Redirect.
Would it refresh your recollection to see a copy of the sworn statement that you gave to
Yes.
police?
Just read it to yourself, and then she'll ask you a question. Tell us when you're through reading, please.
Okay, I'm done reading.
Wait a minute,
Finish.
that's not a question. Just tell us when you're through reading.
Okay, I'm through reading.
All right, Ms. Dugan, do you have a question?
Did that refresh your memory about what you told police about when you and your mom may have last time talked to Brandy?
Yes.
Okay. What did you tell police about when you mentioned 10 or 9 p.m.?
I told them, I said I had talked to her. It was about, I talked to my mom. I was telling them that I had talked to my mom about 10 or 9 p.m. And I told her that Brandon didn't answer the phone.
Okay. So what you said in this statement was that your mom called to see if you had talked to Brandy at 9 or 10 p.m.
Yeah.
That's what you said about
Yes.
9 or 10 p.m. Okay. You never talked to Brandy at 9 or 10 p.m.
No, I never talked to Brandon at 9 or 10 p.m.
Okay. And in your police interview a couple days later, you never told them you talked to Brandy at 9 or 10 p.m.
No.
Okay. And You told us the last time that you saw her, spoke to her, was late that afternoon before she was going to pick up the kids. You said sometime at 4-ish, between 4 and 5?
Yes, ma'am.
Fair to say you'd remember the last time that you talked to your sister before she was murdered?
That was practically the last time we had a conversation, if I can recall.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any juror have a question of this witness? All right, you can step down. Go sidebar. All right, so we're going to break for the evening. Don't discuss the case with anyone. Don't let anyone discuss it with you. Don't watch any news accounts of it. You're hearing it firsthand. You don't need to hear it translated from somebody else. Be back tomorrow morning, 8:45. Did it work all right this morning? Parking arrangements, that's all okay. So it'll be the same plan in the morning, 8:45. And anybody confused about what's expected of you? If not, we'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a good evening. Be seated. Anybody have any issues?
Yes, Your Honor. Earlier we were talking about Dr. McIntyre having to do a hearing for his testimony. Apparently it's a conflict that he just let us know today with another homicide that's going down in Tampa. We are trying to move his testimony up until tomorrow. It should be in the afternoon, but I know we still have to have that hearing on whether or not he can testify to frequency of occurrence. We're trying to make the plain reservations now. I'm not sure exactly when he's going to arrive. I don't anticipate that hearing to last all that long. Maybe perhaps at lunch we should have him up here in order to do that hearing prior to testimony.
All right. Well, let's have a plan, but before we take a lunch break, I mean, if we just have to give the jury a little bit longer lunch break, that doesn't bother me. What I don't want them doing is sitting back in the jury room while we're working on something like that. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think it's going to be all that complicated in terms of testimony wise, but do you think we have to present any other testimony, Mr. Prince, to make a determination?
I don't really know what he's going to say, to be honest, about why he would be able to use a frequency of occurrence table for unrelated individuals for comparison with related individuals. So I don't know that I can answer that right this second.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be prepared to make a decision, so if you want somebody else here to, for me to hear, better have them here, but if we don't, like I say, I don't want the jury sitting in the jury room either. Anything else? Y'all need to kind of sort out what's in evidence or not in evidence and so forth, so let's get that worked out. I think it's a little confused at this point in time. So let's get that worked out. Anything else?
No, Your Honor, we actually had this conversation with Mr. Prince a little while ago, and I think the agreement was on the record. What is not admitted in those numbers, 39 is not.
Telling me and gonna help and say, you can work it out with the clerk and get it on the list, so.
I was trying to put it on the record, Your Honor.
Okay, all right.
39 is not admitted, 98 is not admitted, 100 is not admitted, 115, 116, 117, I'm sorry, 39 is admitted, I apologize. 98 is not, 100 is not, 115 is
All right, so 98, 100, 115, 116, 117, and 118, you are not offering into evidence, is
Not
that?
at this time, Your Honor, that's correct.
And beyond that, it would be 1 through 146. Other than those 6 exhibits.
One moment, there may be one more. That should be it, other than ones that are already noted, that numbers that have no exhibits.
All right, yeah, the clerk has given me, there are 4 additional numbers that don't have an exhibit at this point in time. 42489, 125, 134, and 144.
Yes.
So there will not be exhibits for those 6 numbers at this point in time.
Correct, Your Honor.
Mr. Prince, you're up on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, see y'all at 8:30.